Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our continuing series here. Randall Nelson, we're going to rank the number one songs from 1972. This is our series that we started from 1965 to 1975, taking all the Billboard number one songs in the US and ranking them how we see fit. Today in 72, we have 21 number one songs for that particular year. And we're going to do them in three different groups here. We're going to go 21 to 16, 15 to 11. And then once we get into the top 10, Randy and I will go back and forth and individually see what we have in our top 10 list. At the end, we'll do 5 honorable mentions for songs that we would like to shout out, give some props to that were really good songs in our opinion, but never made it quite to the top of the chart. So what'd you think of 72, Randy? Interesting year again.
Yeah, it seems like it was getting more and more where some of the classic rock, people were buying the albums and they weren't having big singles for a lot of the classic rock groups. There's still some pretty good R&B that was coming out, and starting to think the disco is going to get ready to come into the picture too. But there were a few songs that I thought were pretty terrible in this year.
Yeah, I have 3 that just stood out as really being bad. And like you said, R&B, I think there's at least maybe a handful, maybe half a dozen solid R&B tunes in here that were really strong. So we'll see where they fall in line with our order. So 1972, you'll go first, 21 through 16. What do you have?
All right, I will say that my number 21, when I was a 13-year-old, I thought this song was pretty cool, and I actually have the album that came from, and that's My Ding-A-Ling by Chuck Berry. Like I said, he had done this song earlier as My Tambourine, but it didn't do anything. I guess he wanted to be more direct, so he made it My Ding-A-Ling, which came out on the London Chuck Berry sessions, which like I said, I have the album. I guess he gets loses points because this is the architect of rock and roll doing this stupid song that 13-year-olds would love, like I did.
Yeah.
And it's got some the guy with the classic guitar riffs, and he's doing this novelty song. But I saw that it was like an 11-minute song on the Chuck Berry sessions, and they compressed it down. And 2 guys from the Average White Band play on it, and the bassist from Vandergraaf Generator plays on it. It was written by Dave Bartholomew, who wrote a lot of songs for Fats Domino, but it's just a stupid song about what.
Yeah.
But that's my number 21. And my number 20 is The Candyman by Sammy Davis Jr. Another song that you probably enjoyed if you're less than a teenager, probably like, 5 or 6, you probably thought the song was pretty nice. It came from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, written by Leslie Briskus and Anthony Newley. Anthony Newley didn't like how it sounded in the movie, and actually he was going to do a version of his own, but he got beat out by Mike Curb, who wanted Sammy Davis to sing it. And so Sammy Davis sang it. I think he did it in 2 takes. Sammy Davis hated the song, but it went to number 1, and he told his manager, this song is going to go into the toilet. And it did, and it went to number 1. Got the Mike Curb congregation backing him up. And it is kind of interesting that all 3 of the Rat Pack that were singers had a number 1 song. Got Sammy, Dean Martin did it, and Frank Sinatra, of course. Anyway, that's my number 20, The Candyman. My number 19 is another one by a famous artist, and it's Ben by Michael Jackson, A Love Song to a Rat. They had the 1971 horror movie Willard, and he befriends a rat named Ben, and then they made the sequel, which was Ben, with a different guy. Danny is the kid in this one, and in the movie, he sings this song to the rat. It was originally offered to Donny Osmond, I saw, but he was touring or something like that.
Yep.
It's kind of have a hunting guitar and kind of Michael's got a sweet voice, got these sweeping strings. It's kind of a song about friendship. but I can't unlearn that he's singing it to a rat.
Yeah. Yep.
That's my number 19. I guess I should say there's 4 songs I don't really care for, because number 18, Baby Don't Get Hooked on Me by Mac Davis, which I do kind of like Mac Davis, but this song is pretty much a dreck. It's kind of, he's a bachelor. It's like, don't get any ideas. He just wants this good thing because he doesn't want to settle down. Mac Davis was like in record promotion, and then he worked for Nancy Sinatra for a while, played guitar on some of her songs and was in her band. But he later started writing. Elvis did a couple of his songs. Bobby Goldsboro did too, which shows that he could be pretty schmaltzy too. And he has this soft croon. It's his only number 1, but I like Mac Davis. I like some of his acting, like we talked about earlier, North Dallas 40.
Yes.
But this song I do not care for. That's my number 18. All right. Number 17, this is a song I actually kind of like. And this is when we're starting to get in songs I think are better. Black and White by Three Dog Night. It's a folk song. It was written by a couple blacklisted artists, Earl Robinson and David Arkin, which I found out was Alan Arkin's father.
Oh,
Wrote the
nice.
song from In-Laws and a bunch of other movies. But it's kind of about freedom from segregation. And then 17 years later, it's a number 1 hit for Three Dog Night. They could take any song almost and make it a pop song. But they did drop out the important verse about the court case that inspired the song, Brown versus the Board of Education. It's got a nice organ and piano, cowbell. Each singer for Three Dog Night had a number 1 hit. So they had 3 singers.
Yep.
Corey Ellis, not Corey Ellis, what's his name? Corey Wells. Corey Wells had Mama Told Me Not to Come, and Chuck Negrin did Joy to the World, and this is Danny Hutton singing on this one.
Right.
So that's my 17. 16 is, and I do like, it's Song Sung Blue by Neil Diamond, and I do like Neil Diamond, but it seems like the songs that hit number 1 for him were lesser for me.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Lesser songs. It's kind of a song about depression. But it's sung with a joy somehow.
Yeah.
It's knowing others have the same sadness expressed. I guess the song's supposed to make you feel better. That's why I listen to these sad songs. Musically, the song is based on a Mozart concerto, but it's got some simple guitar strumming, got these clever strings, seductive backing vocals. But I like the music more than I do the lyrics. And musically, I really like the song, but I just think the lyrics are pretty perfunctory. That's my 6th.
Yeah, we're pretty much in alignment on these songs, I would say. Only one different out of the first 6 so far. I have My Ding-A-Ling at number 21. That was an easy call for me. Novelty song, a strong sexual innuendo in the lyrics. It was actually banned by some radio stations, including the one that I listened to as a kid in Philadelphia. They never played this song. It was blacklisted or banned for content. Happened to be Chuck Berry's only number 1 hit in the United States, which is hard to believe, considering all the classic tunes he had early in his career. But yeah, I didn't grow up listening to this because it wasn't on locally. And at the end of the year, when they put together, I always got into the listing at the end of the year where they ranked the best songs of the year. And this one would show up and I'm going, how did I miss that song? Because it was banned, that's why. But it was a national hit. It just wasn't a hit locally. Number 20 was The Candyman by Sammy Davis Jr., which you covered well. It appeared in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Complete, utter saccharine garbage. I mean, really, it's a terrible song. Sammy hated it, but made a lot of money. Who can sprinkle it with dew? Who can make a rainbow, sprinkle it with dew, cover it with chocolate and a miracle or two? The Candyman can. Just all sugar sweetie. And you mentioned the Mike Curb congregation. They were like a real straight-laced, conservative, kind of up with people knockoff of that time when They were the backing vocals here. Number 19 is Ben. So we had exactly the same three in that order. Ben from the film Willard. Michael Jackson singing about a killer rat, which was a horror film. Was actually nominated for Best Song for an Oscar. It lost to Maureen McGovern's The Morning After from the Poseidon Adventure that year. Another disaster flick. And like you mentioned, it was written for Donny Osmond. He was on tour. And it's actually Michael Jackson became the third youngest solo artist to hit number one behind Stevie Wonder's Fingertips and Donny Go Away Little Girl, which we did the year before in 71. So he was quite young when this reached the top. Number 18, Baby Don't Get Hooked on Me by Mac Davis. Real soft rock pop. Just using a girl, or, he's getting his jolly, so to speak. I'll just use you, then I'll set you free. Baby, baby. He's warning the girl, don't get hooked on me because I'm moving on. Sort of a sexist kind of song in a way. Mac Davis had written In the Ghetto for Elvis in 69, which was a big hit. And I do like his performance in North Dallas 40 opposite Nick Nolte in that film. He also had a variety show from 74 to 76, which I'd forgotten about. But I remember it when I did the research, it came back to me. Number 17 is I Am Woman by Helen Reddy, kind of an anthem for women's lib back in those days. Helen Reddy was an Australian singer. She claims divine intervention in helping with the lyrics of this song. She's lying in bed and she hears, I am strong, I am invincible, I am woman. It led to a song. It was a co-written song with another gentleman, but she contributed that lyric to it. And it was chosen as a song for the film Stand Up and Be Counted, which had Loretta Swit and Jacqueline Bisset, Steve Lawrence, kind of a nothing film. It opened, and all of a sudden this song took off after that. So it became a big hit. It was all over the radio, and it was on the midnight special and a lot of variety shows. It was a big deal when she was singing it back then, because women's lib, they were fighting for the right to get abortions. I think that was passed the next year. This was an anthem for that. Burning bras, all that kind of stuff. Helen Reddy was associated with all that stuff. Number 16, Song Sung Blue, which is what you had as well, Neil Diamond. I like Neil Diamond, but it seems like you said his most popular songs are not the ones I like the best. I like things like Solitary Man and even Cherry Cherry I like better than this. But we did Cracklin' Rosie in 1970 and now Song Sung Blue in 72. Strictly adult contemporary kind of music, taking the blues, singing a song and sort of cheering yourself up. Song Sung Blue, Weeping Like a Willow, Sleeping on My Pillow, kind of weird lyrics, but it's basically about how music can soothe your soul and put you in a better mood. And ironically, Neil's album that year was called Moods. So I guess that fit into the theme of what he was looking for on that album. So now we're down to 15 through 11.
All right. I think my number 15 you may have had on your album for 1972 that you did with Massey's Entertainment.
Oh, okay.
I'm not positive about this, but I kind of think you might have had it in there. When I actually do have this album, the song's on, but I'm picking Alone Again Naturally by Gilbert O'Sullivan, which
I don't think I had that, but
maybe somebody else. I don't know.
I think somebody else did.
But and it's he got his name from his real name was Raymond O'Sullivan, but he thought he would put Gilbert in there, like the Gilbert and Sullivan. But
yeah,
I have like I said, I had this album, and I kind of like this song, but it's supposed to make you feel okay about being lonely. Because I guess you're supposed to feel okay because someone's singing about it. I don't know. But if you listen to it, the first verse, he talks about throwing himself off a cliff. The second one, he's jilted at the altar. The third one, he's, does God exist? And then he also talks about his mother and father dying. So it's
right.
It's a pretty sad song to even think about. But that's my number 15 is Alone Again Naturally. It's kind of haunting song, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And my number 14, you had mentioned already, it's I Am Woman by Helen Reddy. I remember seeing her sing this on the Midnight Special. But she's singing it as an uplifting song. And when you see her singing it, it's just like she's happy and she's, pushing this new movement forward. Like she's Melbourne, Australia, where she was from. At the same time, this came out as when Gloria Steinem was, restarting Ms. Magazine.
Yep.
But it's kind of, it gets the strings that kind of swell. It's got the backing chorus that I really like. And she kind of slows down and got this kind of noodling guitar in it. But it's got some kind of interesting musical things in there. And her voice, she had a nice voice, but it's just kind of simplistic now when you think about it.
Yep.
My number 13 is Me and Mrs. Jones by Billy Paul, which I just saw that 3 or 4 days ago he passed away. And it's a classic cheating song. He's with a married woman and they can't really be together. He's got these lush strings and guitars and the sax going in and out. It's really smooth. Produced by Leon Huff and Kenny Gamble, who would later do a lot of the Philadelphia sound with like Jerry Butler and Harold Melvin and Blue Notes, the OJs, that kind of thing. And Billy Paul was like a nightclub singer. He'd served in the army in Germany. And something I found out is he was trying to get Elvis to join his band after they got out of the service, but
wow,
that didn't happen. But I just like how he kind of strings the words out. He goes, you go me and this is, but I think it's a pretty cool song. But it's too sad that he passed away just recently. It's 13. Number 12 is probably a big earworm. Everybody has heard this song, Brandy by Looking Glass. It's extremely catchy. She's a fine girl, what a good wife she would be, but he can't be tied down because he just loves the sea. But the Looking Glass, I guess, were members at Rutgers University as students. They signed by Clive Davis. It started out as a B-side, but I guess a DJ in Washington, D.C. started playing it and then just, escalated the status of the song from there. It just went boom. Written by the lead singer, Elliot Lurie. Brandy's a bartender and she seems to understand that she's never really going to be with this guy. Like but she's got that locket to remember him by, and it's cheesy on the edge of bubblegum, but it's still such a catchy song. I love the piano on it. And Lurie left for a solo career that didn't really happen, but I like the song, Brandy.
Yep.
And my number 11 is I Can See Clearly Now by Johnny Nash. A lot of people said, did this song actually bring reggae to the masses? But it's more on the pop side of reggae, and I wouldn't really even call it a reggae song. But it was influenced by reggae, definitely. Johnny Nash was an American singer who lived in Jamaica for years. It's hard to find the credits for the players on here, but it's believed to be that some of the members of the Average White Band played on it. This is the second song that they supposedly played on and the number one hits here. But I love Nash's plaintive vocals. It's a song about coming through the struggles of life and making it to the other side. It's really a song for hopefulness, and I do like the song. I Can See Clearly Now, Johnny Nash.
Yep, I like it. All these songs I do have a little bit of a fondness for, even though they're in the middle of the pack. Number 15 for me is the Three Dog Night song that you had earlier, Black and White. Originally inspired by that Brown versus the Board of Education, 1954, which outlawed segregation in public schools. It was recorded by Pete Seeger at some point in the 50s. The lyrics were changed. That first stanza was changed, make it more modern. I like the song, definitely. Danny Hutton on lead vocals. And that's the thing about Three Dog Night. They had those three guys and they switched off who was going to be the lead on each song. So good tune. Number 14 is I Can See Clearly Now by Johnny Nash. 4 weeks at number 1. So it's a really big hit. I would say it's reggae tinged. It's not full reggae, but it has a little bit of that sound to it. because he was influenced. He had previously collaborated with Bob Marley. Very optimistic, positive, kind of that smiley face, vibe that you see in the 70s. I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's going to be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. So it's a real uplifting kind of tune, and well done by Nash. He had a higher kind of voice, pleasant voice. 13 is Alone Again Naturally by Gilbert O'Sullivan. You mentioned how sad it is with touching on suicide and losing one's parents and questioning if there's a God and getting stood up at the altar. Everything that could go wrong goes wrong. This was 6 weeks at #1 by the Irish singer Gilbert O'Sullivan. A little bit of a tearjerker. I mean, at the time, it was kind of heavy subject matter, but it had that light, pleasant melody to go with it. So it's very odd that way, but it's a good song. I enjoyed it. I remember liking it a lot back in the day. You don't hear it much anymore. Number 12, one of my favorite bands, but they slipped to number 12 here, and that's America with A Horse with No Name. This is soft rock, folk rock. America were the three American teenagers living abroad with their parents stationed at military bases. They met in high school. They formed a band. This song was originally called Desert Song, and some believe it's a drug reference, but that was shot down by the author and singer of the song, Dewey Bunnell. It's just a guy enjoying the outdoors, absorbing nature, the plants and rocks and birds and things. There were sand and hills and rings, and he's gone through the desert on a horse with no name, and no one to give you no pain, meaning not that he's shooting heroin, but that he's out there by himself, just taking it all in. Nobody give you any hassle. You can get away from it all. And I think that's what the song means. America took a lot of criticism in those days because they sounded so much like Neil Young, who was, a big star at the time coming up. But I always liked the band. And in fact, they're the band I've seen the most in concert. I've seen them 9 times through the years. Big fan of America, even though it's a lightweight kind of sound. I enjoy the guys in the band and the songs they had afterwards. This was their first big hit, though, and I believe it was Grammy nominated as well. Number 11 is the one you mentioned, Me and Mrs. Jones by Billy Paul. Philadelphia roots here, Philadelphia International Records, Kenny Gamble, Leon Huff, who also produced the OJs, and Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, Teddy Pendergrass, the Intruders, Archie Bell and the Drells, 3 Degrees. There's a whole line of Philly artists that they were working with. It's about an extramarital affair. Me and Mrs. Jones, we got a thing going on. And you're right, his phrasing is cool in that. So he hangs on certain words. It makes you feel like you're at a corner bar and he's crooning about this woman that he's involved with. Billy Paul's real name was Paul Williams, and he changed it because there was a Paul Williams in the Temptations, as well as the singer-songwriter Paul Williams. So he went with Billy Paul. Philly soul. It's the epitome of Philly soul. Now we're into the top 10. Number 10.
Well, my number 10 is Without You by Harry Nielsen, originally recorded by Badfinger. Only their version was more kind of Beatlesque pop. It wasn't as dramatic as Nielsen did it.
Yeah.
He just has this soaring vocals on this song, showing off his pipes, which I can see, like Whitney Houston or Mariah Carey doing this song as to show off your voice. But he was a wonderful songwriter, Nielsen was. But his 2 biggest hits were actually written by somebody else. Everybody's Talking was written by Fred Neil, and the song was written by Pete Ham and Tom Evans of Badfinger. I like how it starts out with the simple piano, which I found out was done by Gary Wright, which I didn't know that. And it builds to this grand orchestral climax, and then goes back down only to return again. And it's really a power ballad, one of the early power ballads that a lot of rock groups would do later on. But and Harry Nielsen had this wonderful voice that he later ruined with drugs and drinking and carousing with John Lennon, and as well as other people.
Yeah. That's my number 10 also, Without You. Harry Nielsen, 4 weeks at number one. They won the Grammy Award for Best Pop Vocalist Best Pop Vocal Performance by a Male for that year. It's on the Nilsson Schmilsson album, which is probably his most famous album. Like you said, power ballads, got some string arrangements. Pete Ham and Tom Evans of Badfinger wrote it. I didn't know that Gary Wright was on piano either until I did the research. Of course, Gary Wright would have hits Dreamweaver and Love Is Alive in a few years, I think 76. But it's a good song, Without You.
My number 9 is The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face by Roberta Flack. It's on her debut album, First Take, which is a very good album. It's unbelievably haunting ballad, and she's got this mesmerizing voice that you just go in and just lose yourself in it. 2 years later, after being used I can't talk right now. 2 years later is actually when it became a hit in 1972. This album came out in 70, when it was used in the movie Play Misty for Me, and also won Grammy Song of the Year, written by Ewan McCall, who's Christy McCall was his daughter. It was written for Peggy Seeger, which was Pete Seeger's sister, and she did the first version. But this was kind of a jazz folk song. Roberta Flack was classically trained on the piano. She just kind of drew the song out. The instrumentation is sparse, but it's all about her voice on this song.
Yeah, I like that song a lot. It's a little higher up for me. My number 9 is Oh Girl by the Shy Lights. I really, I love the song. I did then, I still do. Shy Lights were a group out of Chicago, a soul group. The song was written, produced, and sung by Eugene Record, who was their front man. It's about a man on the verge of a breakup. Oh girl, I'd be in trouble if you left me now. I don't know where to look for love, and I just don't know how. Very heartfelt. It's got a harmonica that comes into this as well. Nice soothing ballad. Love it. Number 9.
A couple spots up for me, but my number 8, you mentioned earlier, is A Horse with No Name by America. And I'm glad you kind of explained it, because the lyrics make no sense to me on this song.
Right.
But I do like it. And I guess supposedly, he used to live in California, and they would take trips out into the desert and ride in New Mexico and Arizona. But and it was a non-album single in the UK, but when after it became a hit, when they released the album in the United States, it was on the album. But like I said, I didn't know really the song, and he does sound a little bit like Neil Young, like you covered, but they got some bongos in there kind of in the background that I kind of like too. But yeah, that's my number 8.
Yeah, it's a catchy song. It's one that it could be an earworm as well, like you mentioned before. My number 8 is I'll Take You There by the Staple Singers. Yeah, it's hard to put these in order because I like all these songs a lot. It's kind of a gospel feel to it with the pop staples and the three sisters, Mavis, the lead among them. R&B, funk, soul, blues, father and daughters, Stax Records, recorded in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. Really a great song. Sonically, it works. The vocals are fantastic. Number 8 for me.
Yeah. My number 7, you mentioned earlier, Oh Girl by the Shy Lights, written by Eugene Record, who is kind of, seems like a lot of the singer-songwriters that were soul singer-songwriters don't get the credit. But,
right.
He wrote a lot of great songs that a lot of people covered. And he was a really good musician. He actually sang lead, played guitar and drums on this one.
Yeah.
And then Shy Light Marshall Thompson is one that does the cool harmonica on it. But I just love, he's got a beautiful voice. I've always loved this song. That's my number 7.
Yeah, I like that song they had the year before. Have You Seen Her? Also,
yeah, that's a great one too.
A great one. Didn't make number 1, so we didn't cover it, but it's a really good song. My number 7 is Brandy, You're a Fine Girl by Looking Glass. This appeals to the pop sensibility. I mean, I've always loved this song. You mentioned they met at Rutgers in New Brunswick, New Jersey. kind of a one-hit wonder. They did have a song called Jimmy Loves Mary Ann, which made it to number 33. But this was their big hit about a barmaid in a seaport town, and she works laying whiskey down. Very catchy, hook laden. Uh, Evidently, Brandy, the name Brandy, increased in popularity. I read too for girls in 1971. Before this came out, it was the 353rd most popular girl name. 1972, it went up to 140, and after the year after 1973, it went up to 82nd in popularity. So this people love this song, and it's just one that's people, well, let's name our kid Brandy. So they did. All right, number 6.
Number 6 is Lean on Me by Bill Withers, written by Bill Withers. He grew up in a coal mining town in West Virginia, and the song's kind of about neighbors helping each other out. And, you know, you could always count on somebody. You know, it's more of a song about pledge of friendship than anything. It's got the churchy piano, and he starts humming. And then he had this, the hit before this was Ain't No Sunshine, which he had a hit with. And I guess he thought the music industry was a little fickle because he was still working at an airplane factory when he did this song. And then if you look at the cover of the album, he's got his lunch pail in front of the factory where he was working. But I just love and he bought a Wurlitzer piano because of the money he made from Ain't No Sunshine, and he shows it to great effect on this song. Got to number 1 again in 1987 by Club Nouveau. It's just a great song. You know what I mean?
Yeah, real strong. My number 6 is Heart of Gold by Neil Young. Another fantastic song, country rock off the Harvest album. You got James Taylor and Linda Ronstadt as backing vocals. Neil on acoustic guitar with that harmonica, which I'm a big harmonica fan, and it always adds something to the song. Recorded in Nashville. It kind of put Neil in the mainstream, which he really was uncomfortable with. He liked being kind of anonymous, and he didn't want to be considered a sellout, he changed his styles periodically from there and never really went back to the success of this particular song. He never had another number 1 song as far as I know. And so this is number 6 for me, Neil Young, which is one of the better Neil Young tunes.
All right, number 5, I have American Pie by Don Mclean. This is the longest number 1 song at the time, which it was later broken by Taylor Swift, broke that record, and she had a song that was longer. And I did see something where she sent a bouquet of flowers to Don Mclean. So I thought that was kind of classy. So, but, and it was so long that, you know, it couldn't all fit on an A side. So you had to flip the record over, and I have it. I bought it when it came out.
Yeah.
On United Artists, you got part 1 and you had to flip it over and hear part 2. But it's a great song, kind of talks about the history of rock and roll. It starts out with the plane crash with Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper and Richie Valens. And he was actually a paper boy. That's what kind of got where Don Mclean got the idea of, you know, the paper boy seeing the news and everything like that. And on my channel, if you look up on my channel, I got the Surf Ballroom is the background for what do you call it, the header for your channel, for your YouTube channel. But that's what I have up there, Surf Ballroom, which is the last place that Buddy Holly played at the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa.
Clear Lake, yeah.
And then there's a Buddy Holly Road. That's my what do you call it?
Thumbnail?
Thumbnail, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can't talk today. But it's got the singable chorus that everybody knows. Pie, pie, me some American pie. I drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Really catchy. And then people have dissected this song for years. Is Bob Dylan the Jester? Is they talking about Mick Jagger in one part? They talking about Kent State when he talks about the marching band refused to yield.
Right.
But it's energetic, these great tempo changes, and Don McLean's never sounded better than on this song. Yeah, that's my number 5.
I agree. My number 5 is The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face by Roberta Flack. killer song, 6 weeks at number one. It started out with a slower version in like 1970, and then Clint Eastwood heard it on the radio from what I hear and said, I love that song. I want to use it in my film, which is Play Misty for Me, where he plays a DJ in Monterey or out in the west coast of California. It fit the scene that he wanted to shoot. It was a love scene between him and Donna Mills. And then after that, the song took off in popularity. It became a monster hit. People started going to see the Eastwood film, and they noticed that Roberta Flack song in it. And all of a sudden, it was a number one tune, soulful, kind of jazz tinged. I love her voice, like you mentioned. It's so soft, and then it has a flow to it. It's a beautiful song, beautiful verse. Always be a favorite of mine. Number 5.
Right. My number 4 is Let's Stay Together by Al Green, which Al Green wasn't sure about this song when he did it, but Willie Mitchell, the producer, was, and it did become a big hit for him. And Al Green kind of sang in this kind of blues tinged voice, and Willie Mitchell wanted to experiment with a falsetto and doing some other stuff with his voices, which he does on this song, and it just works perfectly. I love the honking horns on here, but the emotion of Al Green that comes in. I mean, he doesn't force anything.
Oh.
He just kind of glides through the song, and he'll go up to the falsetto and then kind of down. But and I guess they said Al Green was best singing in front of people, and Willie Mitchell supposedly brought in these winos and drunks into the studio when they were recording, so he'd have somebody to sing to when he was doing it. But and if you know anything about Al Green, that he's also became a preacher. There's that song, Mark Cohen song, Walking in Memphis, where he talks about going to his church and Al Green preaching there. But just a wonderful song by Al Green, and he's just amazing vocalist.
Yeah, it's my number 4 also. Let's Stay Together by Al Green. Like you mentioned, he has that natural soul in his voice. You don't even have to give it an effort. It just comes out. It was featured in Pulp Fiction, Let's Stay Together, and it's been covered by many artists, including Isaac Hayes, Roberta Flack, Tina Turner, Boyz II Men, and Michael Bolton, believe it or not. So that's my number 4. We hit on that one.
All right, my number 3 you talked about already, and that's I'll Take You There by the Staple Singers. Originally, when we make these lists, I put what I think they're going to be, and then I listen to all the songs, and then I kind of arrange them.
Yeah.
This was actually the one I put at number 1 at the beginning, and then I moved it back to number 3. Written and produced by Al Bell, who was, I don't know if he was the Stax president or vice president. He was
up there though. Yeah,
he was a big wig at Stax.
Mm-hmm.
It's got Terry Manning on harmonica. It's got Eddie Hinton plays the tremolo guitar. So when she says in the song to play it, Pops, but which usually in concert was her father, Pop Staples. But on this recording, Eddie Hinton was the one playing the tremolo guitar. Got the Barkays were doing the horns, and it just imagines a better place. And what I love about the song is, she's just kind of shouting or I mean, even before she starts singing, she's doing these different vocal things. Like she can't ready to tear into the song, which is amazing. But I love Mavis Staples singing.
Yeah, fantastic song. My number 3 is Lean on Me by Bill Withers. You mentioned so soulful, almost gospel vibe, uplifting, leaning on one another for support. When you need a friend, call me. And it's like, call me, call. Just one of those, reach out and touch kind of songs. You mentioned he was a coal miner from West Virginia, and he was still working in a factory, and he never thought he was going to make it. I think he was a Vietnam vet as well, as I recall. I mean, he was a regular Joe that happened to come out with a couple tunes like Ain't No Sunshine, Use Me, and Lean on Me, and he became a famous person. Bill Withers, real down-to-earth individual. Nice documentary called, I think, Still Bill, that's out there. If you see it, it's excellent. So A lot of respect for Bill Withers, number 3 for me.
Well, getting to our top 2 here. My number 2, you mentioned already, Heart of Gold by Neil Young. It's kind of a simple song. It's got like 4 chords.
Yeah.
Just the other day, my nephew's learning the guitar, and I heard him playing this song. So it's a song a lot of people, when they're starting the guitar, will learn to play.
Mhm.
But like you said, it's got cool harmonica and pedal steel and drums on this. And he was getting ready to be on the Johnny Cash show, and he was in Nashville, and Linda Ronstadt and God, who was the other person? James Taylor were going to be on the same show. So they're actually the ones singing backup because he started doing this song in the studio there.
Yeah.
That's I've been to Hollywood, I've been to Redwood. He's just looking for a girl there. And he was only 26 when he wrote it, but when he says, "And I'm getting old," he did sound old. Even when Neil was young, he sounded like he was old. But there's a little bit of futility in the song, but I do love that. It's a simple song, but it's Neil's only number 1 song. And the album Harvest that was on is actually the number 1 album that year, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah. My number 2 is Papa Was a Rolling Stone by the Temptations, written by the great team of Norman Whitfield and Barrett Strong, who we've mentioned pretty much every year. They always seem to come up with a number 1 song, sometimes more than that. Great, unrecognized today as the great songwriting team that they are. This is a beautiful arrangement. There's a 12-minute version on the album. They actually had a 4-minute instrumental intro before you even get to the lyrics. It starts out doom, 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 with a killer bass line. Then the other instruments come flowing in. It's got the great ensemble vocals with Dennis Edwards, who was now the lead singer for the most part, Melvin Franklin, Richard Street, and Damon Harris, who was the falsetto guy that took over for Eddie Kendricks. They're all utilized in this song for different voices. 3 Grammy Awards. It's about a father he's got kids all over the place, and just wherever he laid his hat was his home. And when he died, all he left us was alone. So it was a guy that just got around, and they had, different children with different women and things like that. It spoke to the inner city lifestyle, I guess, at that time, and a really, really excellent song. Can't say enough. Everything about it I love. The lyrics, the instrumental, and the performance. What can I say? Number 2.
Yeah, that is my number 1. So Papa Was a Rolling Stone, the Temptations. This was when Motown was kind of making that transition from soul to more of a funk group in the 70s. And Norman Whitfield was kind of leading that charge. And of course, the Motown would never be the same, and never have we were never going to be as influential as they were in the early 60s and late 60s. But like I said, it's a song about an absent father. They're still working with the Funk Brothers, which was kind of the wrecking crew of Motown.
Yeah.
Like I said, 4 different singers sing on this song. You mentioned Dennis Edwards, Melvin Franklin, and there's also wrote down Richard Street and Damon Harris.
Yes.
But I do love the part with Melvin Franklin, who had that deep bass voice.
The deep voice, yeah.
And when she died, all he left us was alone. And that ain't right. Really deep voice of that. Yeah. But it shows the versatility of the singers they had in that group. And I love the beginning, the cymbals, and then the bass starts. It's kind of a little like the beginning of the theme from Shaft. And you have this long instrumental before, the Temptations even sing, which caused some consternation in the group, because I guess they thought, it was all being kind of taken over by Norman Whitfield, and they were becoming less and less important as singers. But I think it is a fantastic song, and the last great Temptations song.
Agreed. My number 1 is American Pie by Don Mclean. I had to go with this. I think it's a monumental song for that era. I love it. The day the music died, sort of the plane crash that everybody knows about, February 1959. Buddy Holly, Richie Valens' Big Bopper. And it's narrated by Don Mclean, who's a newspaper boy, like you mentioned. Bad news on the doorstep. I couldn't take what he saw, the headline of the crash, it's sort of a loss of innocence. And there's all kinds of symbolism in there, which you referred to about the different characters and events of the 60s and early 70s. He uses the jester and the courtyard. There's the marching band refused to yield. There's a Beatles reference in there, the Stones, Mick Jagger, Hendrix, whoever you want to use, all that history of music that led up to the present day, 1971, when the album came out, in 72, when the single made #1. Very nostalgic. And it was a monster hit. They would play it all the time on the radio. You held up the single part 1 and part 2, which I didn't even know such an animal exists, but that's cool. I had to be my #1. I couldn't bury it, but I love at least half of these songs that we mentioned. About 10 of them are really, really good songs. It was hard to put them in order, I thought. And Glenn Kellaway usually says it's all garbage, but I disagree. I think there's some really hidden gems and some good songs that stand out. Of course, he's a little older too. So in 1972, I was 15. FM was just about ready to be where I would turn to the dial, but I still hung on to these AM hits for whatever reason for about the next year or two. And then after that, I consider most of that stuff garbage. But with Glenn Kellaway at this time, he's probably 18 and 19 years old. So he's made the transition where he's not paying attention to the AM dial anymore.
Yeah.
That's the difference. It depends when you hear it, when you grow up, how old you are, that type of thing. So
that's why I used to work with, and we used to go to concerts together all the time. And he hated American Pie for some reason. I guess he thought it was indulgent or something. I don't know. I always loved the song, and like I said, I bought the single, so
it's cool. It's cool to hang on to. Nice artifact. All right, now we're going to get into our honorable mentions for 72, the 5 songs we chose, which never made it to #1, but we still like to honor them in some way. So what do you have for us, Randy?
Well, first one I wrote down was Layla by Derek and the Dominoes, only made it to #10. I just think that album, the whole album is just a fantastic album. One of my favorite albums of all time is the Derek and the Dominoes, Layla and Assorted Love Songs. Then my second one I wrote down was Garden Party by Rick Nelson. Only went to #6. It's another song that kind of mentions the different things in music and different people.
Yep, that's right.
Just a cool kind of a country rock song, kind of a new thing for him. But #6. I also wrote down my favorite Rolling Stone song, which only made it to #7. That's Tumbling Dice.
Yeah.
And then the fourth one is You Wear It Well by Rod Stewart, only made it to #13. And then I wrote another one down that didn't crack the top 40. It was actually 41, which was Tiny Dancer by Elton John. I can't believe it only made it to 41.
I know. Yeah, I love all those songs that you mentioned, every single one of them. I have 2 of them. I've got Layla, Derek and the Dominoes, #10. I've got Dr. My Eyes by Jackson Browne, #8. I'll Be Around by the Spinners, #3. Always love that song.
That's good.
#4, Day After Day by Badfinger, which is a real catchy power pop tune. And I'm cheating a little bit. I'm going to give Elton John a shout out. He had 3. Rocket Man at #6, Leave On at #24, and Tiny Dancer at 41. All of those songs were staples of 1972. So, and he was on fire. I think he had Honky Cat in there too that year, but I didn't write down the number. So Elton was the king back in those days for me, for sure. Very good. Awesome lists. We want everybody to check out our other years if you haven't yet. We started in 65. They'll all be listed below. If you want to check out a particular year, I'll have them highlighted. And we'll be back with 1973 next week. Check out Randy Nelson's channel, Randall Nelson, diverse style of music. He likes everything. He's got a great collection. Watch his videos, subscribe, like and subscribe to our video as well. Leave some comments. We'll get back to you with responses. Appreciate everybody watching. We'll see you for 1973 next week. Take care, everybody. Bye.